let's have a little trip down the memory lane. Ghost of Tsushima is announced, and the developers, they point out how they grew up with samurai movies and they really enjoyed that type of aesthetic, that type of culture, and they wanted to reproduce it in one of their video games. And then they talk about how they focused a lot on the katana. They wanted the fighting in the video game to realistically represent the deadly swiftness of the katana. They focused a lot on trying to balance realism with gameplay, and their main focus was to create something entertaining. To which people realized that something like that cannot happen in modern America and started attacking them for bullshit like cultural appropriation. Apparently, in one of their presentations, they had a white man playing a Japanese instrument. Now, it doesn't matter the fact that that particular white man was one of the few people in the world capable of playing that instrument right now. The problem was the heritage, the pedigree, like the Nazis. They looked down the family tree. They probably did the one-drop rule, and they said, no, you're not allowed. Stay in your lane. Like every culture has an IP, and you're guilty of copyright violations. Now, of course, the game was incredibly successful. Game of the year. And now Ubisoft is attempting to make their own Assassin's Creed. Just like I predicted, I said that the new Assassin's Creed is going to take place in Japan. Not only due to the fact that the fans of Ubisoft have been begging the company to make an Assassin's Creed in Japan since Assassin's Creed 3, but the problem with the Americas is that they quote-unquote champion diversity, but they don't want to actually create diverse stories. Like, they don't actually want to make a game that takes place in Africa or in Japan. They just want to race swap or gender swap a couple of characters and call it a day. Because the moment you have the audacity as a Westerner to make a game in Japan, well, you have the cultural critics at Kotaku that are salivating to write articles accusing you of sexismus, misogynismus, whatever. And they want to avoid that. You know, like Kotaku, the journalists there, they're terrorizing these poor game development companies in order to get them to fall in line. Because the whole point of it is, like, if you want to make a game that takes place in Europe and you're Japanese, you can just do that. Like, you don't give a shit. You know, just make a European game. Make a Dark Souls or something. But if you're a European and you want to make a game that takes place in Japan, well, now you need to hire a cultural critic, like an ambassador, if you will, which is going to check if your game is offensive or not. And that costs the company a lot of money, believe it or not. The writers get fed up with that shit. So the Americans just try to stay in their lane and not make entertainment that takes place in other parts of the world just to avoid that crap. And here you have it. You know, like, here you have an article coming from Kotaku simping for Ubisoft. Big surprise there, I know. And apparently in the article, the author is complaining that there weren't enough sex and horny NPCs in a game about your country being destroyed and ravaged by barbarians. Yes, because, you know, you need to have the trope. Like, you need to have that fucking trope that you see in every single Hollywood movie. Like, regardless if it makes sense or not, you need to have the sex scene in it. And of course, they avoided having the sex scene in it because then the feminists would go like, misogynist was a beautiful woman and a beautiful man in a video game having relationship. That is misogyny. That is what the patriarch, the male gaze. You know, like, just avoid that, you know, so they don't have it. But, like, what I find it the most interesting, the audacity, you know, the cojones on these people who are journalists at Kotaku, journalismic, thinking that they know about how to create a video game. Like, really? And the thing is, like, the audacity, like you're going after the game of the year, Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, that's like a person that doesn't know anything about music, with my voice, who can't sing for shit, trying to criticize the Bohemian Rhapsody. That's pretty much what is going on here. And the criticism is also dumb. You know, like, they're complaining that the game focuses too much on honor, to a caricature aspect of it. And it's like, yes, because the game is based on Japanese samurai movies from the 80s and the 90s. That's why. Like, all those movies, they had in common the focus on honor. So the game tries to reproduce that. This is like complaining that Fallout 76 has the bizarre aesthetic of the future. Because that's not how the future looks like. It's like, yeah, but like, Fallout is based on how America in the 80s and the 70s thought that the future is going to be like. You know, the George Jetson type of cartoons and the big robots and all that shit. You know, it's built around an aesthetic. It's not trying to emulate reality. But of course, you know, had this person consider the what the developer said and actually listen to them, they would know. But they're Kotaku journalists. Like, they're not going to do some investigative journalism. Eh? They're not going to see like what exactly did the author and the developer try to create. They don't even care whether or not this game was well received in Japan. Like, they don't care any of that. You know, this is American identity politics. I guess, like, because the journalist has some heritage from Asia, that makes her the ambassador for the Asian community. And by the way, also something funny regarding this game. I remember when it came out, a lot of Americans were offended by it. You know, like cultural appropriation, blah, blah, blah. And then you had Japanese people from Japan going on Twitter and saying, no, like, this game is perfect. You know, we really like it. And the American Japanese were really angry. Like, they were foaming at the mouth, going like, oh, you Americans, you shouldn't listen to the Japanese from Japan as if they know better. You should listen to us because we're offended. It was absolutely hilarious. Like, that was like the most ushikushi moment that I have seen on social media. I gotta say, because again, like you had people that pretended to be offended, because let's be honest, it's a video game, okay, no one gives a shit, but they pretended to be offended, like wanting brownie points, and you had the Japanese from Japan coming on and saying, no, that's fine, like, there's, like, we have no problem with this, and it was depowering the Americans. It was taking away from their spotlight, and that really upset them. So anyway, yeah, I don't think Ubisoft is going to make a game as good as Ghost of Tsushima, simply because Ghost of Tsushima developers didn't care about any of the nonsense, but Ubisoft probably cares a lot. So you're not going to create, like, if you're shackling yourself to American identity politics ideology, well, good luck. You're not going to make a good game. But hopefully I'm wrong, you know, hopefully they will make, because I want to play something, you know, there's not that much to play nowadays. If they manage to make a really good game that focuses on Assassin's Creed in Japan, yeah, sure. But I don't think they'll make it. And definitely not if they listen to Kotaku. I mean, look, Kotaku is a very good publication, but only to read what they're saying and do the exact opposite. And then you might actually make money with your video game. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.